Hello, everybody. This is Georgianne Hughes, and this is The Bite Show. And we are very fortunate to have with us Olaf Hage. You can write to Mr. Hage at this address, Post Office Box 427, Brunswick, Maine. The zip code is 04011. Please visit Olaf Hage's website. It is a treasure trove of information. The website address is theTimeQuest.com. All run together, theTimeQuest.com. And right now, we are going to talk about the mark of the beast. Is it here already? What is it? People think, well, that's the chip they're going to put in you. I think there is a huge spiritual component because I don't think God really cares that much about a man-made chip. He does care about your heart and your soul and who you love and worship. Hi, Olaf.
Hi, Georgianne. Yeah, I know there's a lot of talk today about the mark of the beast, and now that Walmart's trying to warehouse its inventory with RFID chips and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
This is an invasion of privacy. There's no question about that.
You bet.
Actually, still monitor. If you buy a pair of shoes and you walk out of Walmart and those chips are embedded in the shoe, every time you walk by a sensor, it can detect that you're there and so forth. And there's no question but that that's an invasion of privacy. And there's also no question that it can be used as that you could enforce a pretty solid dictatorship if you wanted to use that technology. But that's not necessarily the same thing as the mark of the beast. And if you'll notice, when you look at the book of Revelation, chapter 13 talks about the mark of the beast, and then chapter 14 talks about the seal of God.
Right.
Foreheads of the saints.
Right.
There's a contrast between these two things. Now, obviously, there's a spiritual level where you can look at this metaphorically, spiritually, and you talk
yes.
the Holy Spirit in the believer's forehead, so to speak. But what's the right hand all about? Because you don't have your spirit in your right hand. Now, back in the Old Testament, in the Law of Moses, they talked about the Sabbath as a mark or a sign.
Right.
You and God, and it was let it be a mark between the frontlets of your eyes and your forehead, between your eyebrows, in other words, and in your right hand. Between me and thee, that you are my people and I am your God. So in
right.
the Testament, God was saying to Israel that the Sabbath was a mark, if you will, or a sign between them. It was an indication as to whose people they were. Okay?
Yeah.
But it's not the Sabbath that is the thing that's important. It's whose God you worship. Which God you worship, in other words. Whose servant you are, or which God you are the servant of. Let me put it that way.
Right. Very, very good. Yes.
Yourself into a relationship with a spiritual being by means of which the mark is simply an indicator, just a sign. You see, it's not the thing itself. It's a symbol of it. Okay? And the thing that it is a symbol of is your relationship to that person.
It is. It's a personal relationship between you and God.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the New Testament context, that personal relationship is found through the gift of the Holy Spirit, which is to say the mark in the foreheads of the believer is manifested that way. Yes. I don't think it's a cross made in ash with the priest's thumb on February 2nd or something.
Right.
No, I don't think that's what proves that you belong to God. But if you do get that mark on February second, and people see it, they know you're a Christian.
Yeah.
So in a way, even though that isn't in itself of significance, it is a symbol.
A symbol, yes.
Okay? So the mark is a sign. It is a symbol of something else, and it is the something else that is important, and it's what that relationship entails. Okay? And we are told in chapter 13 of the book of Revelation that the mark of the beast, as opposed to the seal of God, is the indication that you are worshiping or doing homage to the beast, homage to the beast. Okay, so this idea that you are worshiping the beast by taking his mark is the symbol that they're referring to. Okay, whereas if you get the seal of God, then that is the symbol or the sign that you belong to God.
Right.
And so that's a way to look at it. Now, but what's interesting about it is that there's a different Greek word being used for mark, the beast, and for seal of God. And when it's talking about the seal of God, it's talking about something that's impressed in soft clay, so that the mark is something solid, and the soft clay would be the forehead, or if you will, the mind, or the spirit of the believer. So if your spirit is soft and able to be responsive to the impression that God is making on you, think of the way we use these words in English. It made a strong impression on you. It made a firm impression on you.
Yes.
Okay, well, this is actually referring to the idea here behind the seal of God. He made a strong impression on you. And you were soft, that is to say, like clay. You gave to that pressure. You submitted to the pressure that God exerted on your soul, on your mind. In other words, you repented. You had a repentant mind. You weren't hard-headed. You weren't pig-headed. You weren't stubborn. You didn't have a forehead of brass. You see?
Yeah.
This idea that your forehead was soft, God was able to get through to you. He was able to make an impression upon you. Okay? So the seal of God is about somebody who's able to be repentant, who's able to be changeable at God's hands. But notice how this works. It is where the clay voluntarily gives way. Okay? Now, the mark of the beast is charagma. That Greek word means something that is a sharp instrument carving a mark, like your fingernail scratching your skin. Okay? Just imagine a mark on your forehead made by taking your fingernails and scratching vertically downward on your forehead. You'd create 4 scratch marks. Okay? Notice that it says that this mark causes sores of which people cannot be healed. So there's an injury to the skin. A charagma is a carving, incisive mark, the way, say, a chisel makes on granite. It's that kind of mark.
It wouldn't be the mark that a vaccine would leave, would it?
No, I don't think so. I don't think. Well, the needle, not the vaccine, but the needle, makes a. Usually, it goes into a pore, and it typically doesn't. It makes a tiny little hole in the skin. This is a scratch. This is a mark on your body.
Okay.
Body's been carved. Carving mark. Okay. Now, charagma comes from the Greek word karox. A karox was a rampart of pointed stakes. When the city of Jerusalem was under siege in the year 70, the Romans took a mound of earth and they built it up around the city, made a ring around the city, a wall of dirt. At the top of this wall of dirt, they took pieces of wood, they took all the trees all around the city of Jerusalem, they cut them all down, they stripped the bark and the leaves and everything off of them, and they made stakes, pointed at both ends. One end they pushed into the soft earth at the top of the mound. The other end was pointed out toward Jerusalem. As you were trying to escape from Jerusalem, you would go up this soft earth, which would be very hard to climb because your feet would sink down in it like quicksand.
Yeah.
And at the top of that hill would be these sharp-pointed stakes in a row like a hostile picket fence in front of you. And in order to get out, you'd have to go through the points of the stakes. And on the other side of those pointed stakes, on the defensive side, would be the Romans with long spears who didn't even have to cross over the row of pointed stakes. They could literally spear you trying to come up the hill. It was almost impossible. Very simple technology, but almost impossible to break through. That literally, once the Jews were surrounded by this rampart, this karax, as it was called, they were trapped. And there's a prophecy, actually, I think it's in Isaiah, but it says, let their feast be a snare to them, or a trap. Okay? And it was actually on the Passover that this was begun, that this rampart was begun around the city. And by the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and you'll notice, not the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of First Fruits, the rampart was finished. The Romans put it up in just 3 or 4 days. And it coincided with the date of the crucifixion. They started it, and on the anniversary of the date of the resurrection, they finished it. And they literally surrounded Jerusalem on the anniversary of the time that Jesus was in the tomb. Now, I don't think that was an accident, because exactly 144 days later, interesting number, right?
Yes.
The Romans finally took the city, and it was on the 8th day of the 6th month. And I have shown elsewhere that on my first CD, actually, a file on this, that Jesus was circumcised, cut around, okay, on the 8th day of the 6th month. So the day of the circumcision of Jesus was the day, cutting off the unclean flesh symbolically.
Yes.
Day, 144th day of the siege, when they finally captured Jerusalem. So I don't think this was a coincidence, you see. And these are well-documented dates and times and so forth. You don't hear much about them, but they are well-documented. And the fact of the matter is that a karax is a way of entrapping people, surrounding them so that they can't get out, so that there's no escape, so that they are without recourse, and you don't get out without dying. You follow me? If you try to escape, you die?
Yes.
So that basically you're trapped, and you're trapped by this row of pointed stakes. Now, a charagma is a mark on your forehead or in your hand, and I'll explain that in a moment, that looks like a row of pointed stakes. You got the picture?
Okay, yes, yes.
They enslaved somebody.
Yeah.
They would scratch them on the forehead, and you would know he was a slave because of the way he was scratched on the forehead. It was a very simple, low-tech way, like everything they did in those days, of branding a person a slave, in effect. You didn't have to use a hot branding iron. You just scratch him on the forehead, and that would mark him, and that scar would heal, and so you would see that scratch mark on the forehead, you see, and it would show you that this person was a slave. Now, how would you free that man?
Put him line through it.
Exactly. And where have we seen that 4 lines with a line through it before?
Oh.
Yeah. Now, and people say, well, that's the number 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it is a way for what? To do what? It's a way for prisoners in their cells, as they're counting down the days of their captivity, to mark off the time they're in prison.
Right.
You see this many times, okay? Well, isn't that interesting? Because, in effect, what we're showing here is that this is a mark of servitude and enslavement to the beast. See, that's what the symbol stands for. But there's more to it than that. We're being shown what it looks like. And notice what it says here in the text. that no one can buy or sell except they have this mark, okay? And it also says that you must either have the mark of the beast or the name of the beast or the number of its name.
Wait a minute. That's interesting, Olaf, because the seal of God is, there's no or and. It's just the seal of God. But with Satan, it's this or that or this or that. Yeah.
Doesn't want you to escape.
Yeah.
God's mark is what you must voluntarily receive. If I take a rubber stamp, okay, without any ink on it,
right,
and I put it on your forehead and leave a brief impression, but only because your skin's soft,
yeah,
okay, but it'll go away.
Right.
Okay, but the idea is with clay that it takes the impression and holds it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea is that the seal of God is supposed to be an impression that God makes upon your mind, your consciousness, your spirit, that you hold, that you maintain.
Yes.
Okay? Becomes a permanent part of the way your clay, that is your mind, functions. Okay? But it's a voluntarily received one where you voluntarily repent and accept it.
Mm-hmm.
But the mark of the beast is something inscribed on something hard, something that is forced upon you, in other words, that gouges into you, that is not voluntarily received as a mark, so to speak, but is something that you are forced to have. As it says here, it causes all to receive. In other words, it forces them to.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, this mark, it says also is in the hand. Now, it literally says upon the hand, epi here in the Greek. So it's a mark that's upon your hand. Now, if you look at your hand, you see your those lines, your palm.
Yes.
Okay, that's your destiny. Okay. Now, there's some people have interpreted this and said, well, the mark upon your hand is the destiny you're born with, but the Holy Spirit overcomes that, so that the destiny of the weakness of human flesh and the sins that we are heir to does not bring you down, and that the Spirit is able to overcome those things.
Right.
So, and I'm not going to gainsay that. That may very well be part of the level of symbolism here. There's a lot of layers to this, you see. And I've got, as you know, I think I've got 6 hours of discussion about the mark of the beast on my CDs.
Right.
So we're not going to go through all of that. I just want to introduce one little idea here for people to ponder. If the mark of the beast is a set of vertical lines today, 2,000 years ago, John would have seen it as a slave mark. Okay, and that's how he understood it. That's correct. It is enslaving. But what would a mark that looks like a hostile picket fence that's associated with a number that equals it, that means the same thing? So you can either use the number or the mark. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Either one will work, and you can buy or sell. Now, have you ever gone through a checkout line and it doesn't scan? They're trying to scan the mark on the package, the set of vertical lines.
Right.
Doesn't scan, so what do? They type in the set of numbers below the lines manually.
Yes.
Okay? Those numbers are the same as the mark. So the mark you're looking at is simply a barcode for the numbers that you see below it. They're the same exact thing.
Okay, and read that part of the scripture again.
Okay, I was reading from the Greek. Let me read from the King James Version here. And he causes all, both small and poor, small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. See the choices you got there? Now, the name of the beast, that's automaton, which actually means the authorization. When Jesus says, many will come in my name, saying that I am the Christ, he doesn't mean that there's a whole bunch of people coming down the street saying they're all Jesus. He means they're coming on his authority, you see, his authorization, claiming that Jesus has authorized them. In other words, claiming to be Christian.
Right.
Many people will come in my name, that is, claiming to be Christians.
Boy, a lot of that is going on now.
Okay, so you come in the name of the beast, you are claiming to represent the beast.
Yeah.
Claiming the beast's authority or authorization. Okay? So now you're at the checkout counter. They scan it, doesn't work. They run the number, it doesn't work. And what do they do next? They call in an authority. They call in a guy who represents the company, the manager. And they ask the manager to authorize the transaction because it's not working. And he says, here, I'll just key it in for you. He types in his authorization code, he keys it in, and then the thing passes. Isn't that interesting, Gary?
Oh, yikes. Yes, it is.
Three ways for you to buy something with this system.
Yeah.
That's all hooked into a giant global computer network now.
Mm-hmm.
Internet, right? And now, but you can still buy or sell things without it, okay? But I want to point out one little detail to you. The word sell. Everybody's so self-centered in our society that when they read this passage in the book of Revelation, they always focus on whether or not they're going to be able to buy something. They never stop to ask why the passage says or sell.
Yeah.
Why do you need the mark to sell something? You don't have the mark on your product. You can't sell it.
Oh, my gosh.
On the face of the product.
That's right.
See? And what is it that you use to buy this with? A credit card? A bank card? Money card?
My goodness.
So what's on the card? A metallic strip. Do you know what's in that metallic strip? A hidden barcode.
Yes.
Okay? So in your right hand, you are holding, and by the way, try swiping that card through the machine with your left hand sometime. They're designed for right-handed people. Okay?
Wow.
You put the card in your right hand, pull it through you could check yourself out in the supermarket now, and you pull it through, it's actually running your credit card number and your barcode that stands for your credit card number, which is authorized by your bank, through that thing. And if it doesn't work, you complain to the manager, and he comes along and he says, okay, what are you trying to do here?
Yeah.
And he keys in his thing and he authorizes it because the code and the number didn't work, so he'll take care of the transaction for you, so make sure it scans properly. You
That's
see how
awesome.
it works?
Good grief.
It's exactly what we're doing today.
Yes, it is.
But there's two things missing here. The beast and the requirement. You can still buy with cash. I bought stuff today with cash.
Yeah.
And you can still, for a while anyway, you can still buy with cash. As long as we still have cash, the beast can't be, at least this system as we see it here in Revelation, isn't in place. Okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Because here you can't buy or sell unless you have the mark of the beast. So we're not there yet. Also, the beast doesn't come until first you have this event that happens in chapter 12 where the dragon is cast down out of heaven and there is war in heaven where the saints are watching it. The saints are watching this war. So this is a Christian-era war. This isn't some pre-creation war here. I've heard that interpretation, but that's not correct. This is an event that must occur after something we're going to see in the heavens. We're going to watch this happen. There's going to be a war going on up there among the planets, okay?
Oh, my goodness.
See this. I think it involves Mars because that's the planet traditionally assumed to be associated with Satan in early Christian and ancient Jewish literature.
Yeah.
So I think that in their place is no more found in heaven, so something's going to happen to Mars. See, that's why I go into all that Mars prophecy on my CDs. But I think that what's going to happen here is that only after Mars comes by, only after we have this upheaval, only after Satan is cast down, only after whatever those cosmic events are that chapter 12 is referring to, only after that does the beast and his little assistant here come along and do we get the mark of the beast. So the technology of the mark is here. You can see the mark all around you. You got it on every can of soup you buy. It's on every magazine you buy. It's on your credit card. It's on your bank statement. The mark or the number, that stuff's all over the place. But the beast isn't here. Now, let's move ahead. Let's say the beast is here. Let's say you can't buy or sell anything unless you put the mark on it. Okay? Let's say that you get to that situation. There's one other thing before God gets upset with you. He says, who worship the beast, who receive the mark, and who worship the beast.
Yeah.
What's this thing about worship? Do you know how they used to worship in those days? When John saw this, he thought, oh, bow down and touch your forehead to the ground. That was worshiping something, paying homage to it.
Right.
In the ancient world, when you paid homage, as it says here, when you worship, you bowed down before it, okay? And you touched your forehead to the ground. Now, suppose you had a mark on your forehead, a barcode. Suppose I used a laser to burn it into the bone, carve it in to the bone of your forehead.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay?
Oh.
And you wanted to buy something. What would you have to do? You'd have to bow down and touch your forehead to the laser scanner. And, of course, scanning your forehead with a laser all the time would be a high skin cancer risk, a sore that will not heal.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, why would you want to get a mark on your forehead? Because if we use fingerprints to identify you, they can chop your hand off. If we use your eyes to identify you, they can pluck your eyeball out. Okay? If we use a credit card to identify you, they can steal your credit card, your wallet.
Yeah, well, if some of these companies would quit selling people's personal information, we wouldn't have such a problem.
Well, you can see what's going on here.
Yeah.
They're looking for look, if we implant a chip in you, they can cut the chip out. So what's the one thing that they can do where basically they got to drag your whole body around? Put it on the forehead.
Yeah.
It's on the forehead instead of a card you're carrying in your hand. They have no choice, but they have to drag your body around. That makes it really inconvenient.
Now, is this a chip that they would put in the forehead?
No, I think it's a technology they're already using on cattle. They use a carbon dioxide laser to brand cattle with a barcode, just like this kind of system we're talking about here, before they go to slaughter. So probably every beef that you eat, unless it's organic and kosher or something that's slaughtered on somebody's private farm, has one of these marks in the bone of the skull of the animal, although you won't see that unless you actually get a whole carcass when you buy it. So they were probably branded that way originally as they went to the slaughterhouse.
That's terrible.
Notice we're being treated like cattle.
Yes.
And you see this idea of branding like cattle.
Yes.
And it is, in fact, a real brand. And they would use probably a very similar, if not the identical, technology on human beings. Now, if you wanted to decide, well...
Now, if somebody had this done and you looked at their face, you would see this ugly thing on their forehead?
You might not see anything. It's possible that when it's first done, that it might be red or sore for a little while, and then it would heal. But you see, when you constantly scan it with a laser, then things might change because you're heating up. The laser will heat up the mark under the skin, and that constant heating of the skin there could trigger precancerous changes. And it's possible that skin cancer could develop there. And according to the biblical text here, those who worship the beast, who allow their foreheads to be scanned with a laser, in other words, those people eventually develop a sore that doesn't heal, and they're the ones that God's upset with.
Yeah.
Because, you know what? Suppose, for example, you had a child. We are children of God. You had a child, and you told the child, now, don't touch that stove. You're going to get burned.
Right.
and the child touched the stove, and the child got burned, and you said, now you see, now don't touch it again. And the child keeps touching the stove, he keeps getting burned, he keeps coming crying to you and saying, Mommy, look, I burned myself on the stove again.
Yeah.
And after a while, you get upset. You'd say, look, I've told you over and over, don't touch the stove. What's the matter with you? Well, that's basically the problem here. God has given us 2,000 years of warning about this. Okay? It's very obvious when you start to read it. If our preachers would preach God's word to us instead of all of this other nonsense they talk about.
Right.
We gotta make sure that the bake sale on Tuesday is attended by all the youth.
Yeah, I know.
For the big.
Oh, gee. Yeah.
But we don't hear about the mark of the beast, which is more important.
Yeah.
But I think it's crucial that people understand that there are several components here. We don't have all of them in place, but you can see what the mark looks like right now. And you can see how the technology works today. You've used it, I'm sure, already. Everybody has. Okay? But the beast isn't here yet. Until the beast shows up, it's not the mark of the beast. And until the command goes out that you must receive the mark on your person or carry this mark and so forth. And I think that's a global system using this technology that's around today.
Okay, now, it's a system, not a particular person, right?
Well, I think that a person there's normally a person involved in some part of
well, sure.
the process here.
But the overall thing, it is a global system, right?
In addition to the person, there is actually a system, the beast system it's sometimes called.
Yeah.
Will utilize this kind of technology. Now, how long after the upheavals of this cosmic war that this is put in place, I figure there'll be some destruction. It'll take time to put it in place. There'll be an opportunity here. I would be self-sufficient so I don't have to buy or sell anything, don't you think?
Boy.
You see, as long as you have to buy and sell stuff, you're going to be dependent upon the system.
Yeah.
Self-sufficient, then you won't have to be. And now you can see another reason why having your own solar electric vehicle and your own solar electric house and having your own ability to produce food is really important. Being independent, really independent, is a good idea.
But Olaf, like right now, there's a growing number, and it's quite large, thousands and thousands of women that have lost their jobs, lost their homes, or they have a job somewhere but no home. They've lost that. Their husband has walked out on them, thrown them over for some young thing, just thousands of women living in their automobiles. Now,
well, obviously, you can see here exactly what I was getting at before.
Yeah.
That they want to create a slave mentality.
Yeah.
Make us helpless. They want to make us dependent. You have to depend on the government. You have to depend on some organization, some institution. You can't survive on your own. You have to be enslaved to the system. You have to get the mark. You have to sign on. And notice this, that they're exploring all these other technologies, RFID chips, credit cards, fingerprints, retinal scans, all of this stuff. And we all realize, we've even heard them already tell us, that all of these have flaws in them. They can all be circumvented. They can all be, they can chop your fingers off. They can cut the RFID chip out of you, steal your card. And crime keeps increasing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, for this prophecy to come true, requires that crime continues to increase, that in fact this mayhem is part of the process by which the powers of evil enslave the world.
Okay, now a question. We've talked about oil and the price of oil and all of that. And with the escalating costs, there's a growing number of people that cannot afford to drive to work any longer. People that live in rural areas that have to drive 30, 40, 50 miles to a grocery store.
And that's why I think you'll notice that God always provides a solution when there's a problem. Okay, I heard a woman in Iowa say this week, "I've been here through flood after flood, living here on the banks of the Mississippi or Cedar River or whatever river it was there.
Yeah.
Says, I've had it. I'm going to move." It took a lot to get her to move.
To move, yeah.
Going to move. There were those people in New Orleans, okay, and they've had storm after storm approach New Orleans and veer away, and they thought, well, okay, I'll keep on living here. And then finally Katrina, and the levee broke, okay, and the levee's sinking, and it's, the city's doomed. There's no way it can be saved. Eventually, whether it's 10 years, 50 years, New Orleans is going to be underwater because the levees are getting so heavy they sink into the mud and you can't make them higher.
Right.
So that whole area there, all those ranch houses, one-story ranch houses, are nothing but death traps.
Well, Olaf, remember people talking about the Great Lakes eventually sweeping down all that water, coming and dumping, into the Gulf?
Well, it depends on what breaks through and what happens and so forth. There's a lot of these upheavals that can occur. And what I'm trying to get across to people is that right now, you're seeing warnings. The warnings are getting louder as we approach the time when you won't be able to escape.
Right.
And what God's basically doing by sending the hurricanes or allowing the hurricanes or allowing the flooding and allowing all of this stuff to happen at ever-increasing pace is to ratchet up the signal that is God screaming at us saying, get out now. Seek higher ground. Get away from the water. This is a dangerous place to be. We don't want to be by the water. More than half of the world's population lives within 50 miles of the ocean or the Great Sea. Okay? More than half, the bulk of the world's population. I think at the time of the flood that the bulk of the world's population was sandwiched between great glaciers, ice caps, the Ice Age ice, and the seashore. And when the ice melted and the sea rose, they had no place to go.
Yeah.
Hadn't built a boat. They weren't able to float. They died.
Yeah.
Only one person bothered to build a survivable craft, and he and his people survived. Now that's the biblical story. Some people, the Hopi tell stories of hiding in caves or whatever. But the point is, if you don't get out of the way, the events that are inevitably going to occur are going to swallow you up.
That's
and
right.
God doesn't want people to perish. He's not trying to kill you. He's trying to help you survive. He says to Noah, I want you to save the animals. I want you to go find the animals because I don't want them to all die. I want you to save them. So the purpose of God going to Noah and so was trying to save flesh alive, not to kill it all. He says, the end of all flesh has come before me. I don't want all flesh to die. I want to save it. So he set out to save it. The events that were causing the deluge, we don't want to get into all that here because we discussed that elsewhere. But the events that caused the deluge, and you can get that from the CDs, folks, by the way. But the events that caused the deluge were inevitable events that were being caused by other factors, not just by God. Okay, and those things were things that you had to be able to escape, and you had to follow the instructions, if you will. Now, God's telling the whole world right now, head to high ground. Get away from the tidal waves. Get away from the hurricanes, okay? And by high ground, he doesn't mean right out in the open where the tornadoes will get you. He means seek a safe place. It's obvious that people should be looking for safe places right now.
Yeah.
Making it quite clear. It's in the prophecies. All you have to do is read your daily paper or look at your TV. And he's warning us about the mark. And he's saying, beware of this thing. You'll get skin cancer. You'll get a sore that won't heal. If you start paying homage to the beast, if you start worshiping the beast, you're going to be sorry. Don't do that. He's going to be upset at you if you disobey him because he's given you plenty of warning. And, God's screaming from the rooftops now, essentially, through his teachers and his ministers, his preachers, is increasingly telling people, the end is near, something's coming. They're pointing to RFID chips or they're pointing at various other things, and they're saying these are signs. And they are. They are preliminary signs of what's coming, and we're getting there. A few years from now, we're going to be seeing these events unfold in unmistakable ways where nobody will doubt it, and you won't need your Bible for a lot of this stuff because it'll be happening right before your eyes.
Well, a lot of things are happening right in front of people, and they're not seeing it.
Well, it's like UFO.
Yeah.
Back on June 24th, 1947, you had this sighting of flying saucers that was reported, and it went around the country, the news services and everything, and everybody got excited, and then there was the Roswell crash, and they said we've captured a UFO and so forth. And then all of a sudden the cover-up came, and it was like nothing had happened.
Yeah.
And it's like everybody pretended, okay?
Yeah.
Emmanuel Velikovsky's Worlds in Collision about planetary upheavals and the fact that planets don't stay in their orbits was published in May of 1950. And it was the worldwide bestseller. It was a huge book. But you wouldn't know that unless somebody tells you about it today, because you won't find it in the history books. You won't find it in literature classes. Nobody will mention it at all. It's an underground classic, if you will.
Yes.
Somebody has to tell you about by word of mouth, basically, or you wouldn't know it existed. Okay, it's one of the biggest bestsellers of all time, but you practically have to special order it today to get a copy of it. And you know that some of Velikovsky's books, last I checked, were still in print hardcover?
Oh, boy.
How well they sell on the back list.
Yeah.
So the fact of the matter is that there is information out there that is available, that the whole world hears about for a while, and you're right, it gets covered up, it gets suppressed. We had all these batteries that were announced back in the 1970s that they had successfully tested, and then they disappeared. They vanished into Never Never Land, the vaults at GM or wherever it was. They're gone. And yet we know they were around, but they're not around today. Now, I think they'll maybe John McCain's trying to coax them out with a $300 million bribe, but, things are out there. You have to, and they're trying to suppress the Bible. There are places in the world where they'll burn your Bible.
Oh, they'll burn you,
And you for holding one.
Yeah.
Cut off your hand for holding one in certain countries. There are a lot of people in this country who hate the Bible with a passion.
Oh, I know.
They lividly hate the Bible. They're vicious in their hatred of the Bible. Okay? Why? They don't like what it says. And they especially don't like some of the prophecies about what happens to people whose morality doesn't fit the biblical model, which is one that involves, treating women with respect and treating children with respect and not mistreating fellow man and your neighbor and so on.
Right.
There's a lot of people who would like to be able to do certain sex acts with animals, vegetable, mineral, or whatever they can find, who really find the Bible a constraint on their lusts and desires and preferences, and therefore they're very angry at the Bible. And there's a lot of that going around.
Oh, yeah.
They're upset because they know that the Bible condemns their plots to control and steal and rob from the poor and so forth. We have credit cards right now. This is off the subject, but it's in my bonnet, and I'm going to let it out. We have credit cards that have a negative interest rate below the prime rate for rich people.
Oh, yeah.
Good credit. Rich white people, as Barack Obama's pastor would say.
Yeah.
They can get below prime rate credit cards. But poor people, mainly black, Hispanic, and minority people, and the women you were talking about, if they can get credit cards at all, are going to pay horrendous interest rates, up to 37%, 38%. Okay, which used to be loan sharking rates.
Yeah, it's criminal and it's against God.
Oh, we used to send people, God specifically condemns that.
You bet he does.
Damn, it's about that in the Bible. Okay, So God's really upset about this particular thing. We're doing it. Okay?
Yeah.
Two-tier interest rates. There are those who get the favors and those who don't. Okay? And again, if you're doing stuff like that, you don't want to hear about the biblical constraints on loan sharking. Okay? You don't want to hear about that because it's going to cut into your profits. Okay? It's going to affect your ability to become a millionaire by the time you're 30 or whatever.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things the Bible condemns make people really upset. Okay, so this whole thing about the mark of the beast versus the mark of God, notice the mark of the beast is about buying and selling things.
Yeah.
About commerce.
Commerce, yes.
It's about money. It's about trade. It's about profit. It's about interest rates. It's about all that stuff. Credit cards are interest rates. Remember, that's what you're using your right hand to buy this stuff with?
Yeah.
This is all about that kind of mentality. The profit at all costs mentality, where making a profit and making money, cutting deals,
dishonest weights and measures.
Yeah, and cheating people and not having honest weights and measures as the Bible requires you to do.
And believe me, Olaf, now there's a lot of gas pumps that do not give you what you think you're paying for.
No gas pump in this country does, because the ethanol is watering down your gasoline.
Right.
Mileage that you're getting, okay, thanks to the Democrats and Bush, who all signed off on it, some of the other Republicans, including John McCain. So you got a whole bunch of people who are cheating you in various ways for various reasons, okay? And the fact of the matter is that the Bible stands there like a rock,
yes,
pointing out to them their faults. They don't like that. They are, whether they're openly or secretly, they're angry against it. And accordingly, this whole thing is really boiling down to a battle between good and evil. It's just a very simple thing. Between the ethics and the righteousness of God's Word and God's law on one side, and I'm not talking about Sabbath keeping and this feast day and sacrificing 2 lambs on Thursday morning at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, and then charging your neighbor 32%. Oh, gee.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Oh, my gosh.
Law of God, Jesus summed it up. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with thy whole heart, thy whole mind, thy whole strength. The second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Golden rule, if you will. And so that's the ultimate law that God's talking about. Those other things were a way to symbolize various aspects of that relationship, okay? But they're not like symbols, like the mark. They're symbols, okay? The real thing boiled down to loving your neighbor as yourself, loving God with your whole heart, whole mind, strength. Those were the two things that were emphasized. And you'll notice that Jesus did this. He says, I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. Therefore, if you will keep my commandments, then you will abide in my love, and you will be in me, and I will be in him, and so forth. In other words, he boiled it down to the final commandment, which is love your one another as I have loved you. Yeah. That was the final summation that he gave.
Well, isn't that the highest commandment of all?
Yes, that was the one that summarized everything. Love. Now, that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, that's higher.
Doesn't mean have sex with everybody.
That's right. Oh, gee.
He doesn't mean sell your daughter into prostitution so that you can keep the family farm.
Or run around hugging and kissing everybody.
He's not talking about carnality here. He's talking about self-sacrifice. In other words, not imposing your will on others, but, being mindful of others' needs and helpful to one another.
Yeah.
Kind to one another, forgiving of one another, forbearing of one another, patient toward one another, merciful toward one another. Against these things, there is no law. And so if you understand what he's really getting at here, the seal of God is about being soft, compliant, okay? The very things that people like Rush Limbaugh condemn, the very things that the gospel of Jesus Christ is supporting, okay? And you have to understand that we're being fed a false gospel out there. We're being tricked.
Yeah.
and people are falling for it. They're falling for a gospel of greed.
Oh, yeah.
Based upon money.
No ethics.
Yeah. Survival of the fittest. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps instead of help one another.
Right, and you can't love and care about people if you have no ethics. It just...
Well, love creates its own ethics.
Yeah.
Because, I studied formal ethics in college, among other things, and one of the things that we understood there was there were a variety of ethical systems, okay? So you can come up with an ethical system that allows you to do some pretty unethical things by the standard of love.
Yeah.
It all depends on how you formulate your philosophical system. I wouldn't endorse, for example, the ethical system of Alfred Jules Ayer or Alfred North Whitehead or some of the epistemologists or some of these other guys. But what I would say is this, that Immanuel Kant postulated the basic principle of ethics, which was that whatever you believe should be right or wrong should be something that you could have your neighbor direct back at you, that it should be the categorical imperative, as he put it, is that you should be able to project it out to the whole category.
Yeah.
So, in other words, if you say that, I should be able to play whatever loud music I feel like because it's my house. But then if your neighbor is playing a different kind of music that conflicts with the kind of music that you're playing, playing it just as loud, then neither of you gets to hear music.
Yeah.
So I suggest you both get Bose noise-canceling headphones. And you can turn it up as loud as you want and ruin your hearing if you want, but you won't be disturbing your neighbor. You will show love and consideration towards your neighbor. You can tell when people don't have Christian love because they disturb their neighbors a lot.
Yeah.
You can tell when people don't have love because they cut people off in traffic. You can tell, or they pull out in front of you in traffic. Okay. You can tell when somebody takes the right of way from you. Okay, disobeys the rules of the road because they think they're more important than you are. You see?
Oh yeah.
And that's the opposite of what Jesus was talking about.
Now, Olaf, I've got a question. If everybody is going to be forced to take this mark,
or they can't buy and sell,
or they can't buy and sell, okay, there are people that live in condominiums or high-rise apartment buildings, elderly people.
Have time to get out.
Well, a lot of those people live on less than $600 a month. Where would they go? How, and when you get into your 60s and 70s,
tell me about it.
Plowing a garden that's hard.
That's true, and that's why we call loving one another community gardens, community situations. You'll notice that the Christian community is a community of people of all ages.
Yeah.
Group of people. It's a bunch of people helping one another.
Yeah.
And the church is supposed to function as an organic whole or a body that works together with each member contributing its normal function. Your hand, your eye. The eye doesn't do the hand's work, and the hand doesn't do the eye's work. So everybody can contribute what they're able to and what the Spirit, if you will, leads them to do. So it's talking about an organic group of people, each of which is led to voluntarily do something through the leading of the Spirit for the group and for others and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Older people can babysit kids. They can help to teach if they can't do physical work and so forth. There's a lot of things that people can do. And when somebody has something that they are allowed to do and allowed to contribute, there's a 92-year-old guy here at my condominium association who goes out and shovels snow.
Oh, my goodness.
Heavy old steel shovel I wouldn't use.
Yeah.
And he's 30 years older than I am.
Oh, my goodness.
And he's got an aluminum hip or something, and an aluminum shoulder. I don't know. He showed me all of his different gadgets, and he says he's a bionic man. He's a nice guy, but he used to play. I guess he still does play golf, but I mean,
well, Olaf, is there anything in Scripture there concerning this mark and this forcing everybody to take this mark? Is there anything there that indicates that God will divinely protect certain people? And another thing, there are people that believe that manna will fall from the skies to feed them.
Wow, I'd rather have that Bible than the one I've got.
Yeah, see, that's what I thought.
It's got all kinds of promises mine doesn't have.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. That sounds like a really neat Bible. Let's get that one instead, huh?
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, God's warned you what's going to happen. That's a lot.
Yes.
Silent. He didn't have to tell you. He gave you 2,000 years of warning. It's like if I tell you that get out of the road, kids. There's a truck coming.
Yeah.
Kids keep playing in the road. I said, kids, there's a truck coming.
Yeah.
Kids, they hear you, but they keep playing. Kids, you got to get out of the road. There's a truck coming. Okay. Now the mother finally, at the last moment, goes running out of the street trying to rescue the kids, and she gets hit by the truck.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, the kids at some point are not kids. I mean, we're adults. Okay, we're supposed to be responsible. We've had 2,000 years of warning. We've got thousands of preachers out there, none of whom who are called by God's name, under His authority, so to speak, but who are not preaching His word to His people and not converting them and not getting the message across. In the latter days, they're not going to understand it because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Jeremiah 23. So the problem is that it says there that God Himself, that He's going to come down and He's going to preach to the sheep, and He's going to bind up those who are injured, and He's going to seek out those who are lost, and so forth on the dark and cloudy day. Keyword dark. Okay, what does dark signify? After the sun goes dark. That's way past the beast time.
Okay.
So Christ is coming back after the sun goes dark, just as it says over and over again in your Scripture. The sun will be dark, and the moon will not give its light. And, then you will see the sign of the Son of the Man in heaven, and the saint coming out of the clouds of heaven with His angels and gathering His elect, and so forth. Yes, exactly what Ezekiel 34 and 35, 36 say. Yes.
Well, now, is this what some people refer to as the rapture?
Yes. Well, that's what the angels come and gather you up. That's enough rapture for anybody.
Yeah, I would think so.
And where are they taking you to? To the air, to meet Him in the air when He comes to where? The Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. Okay? Is this a surprise? No, He's been telling us this for thousands of years. It's not unclear. It's easily stated. But it doesn't fit what people would prefer. I'd like to keep living here in my condo, and I'd like to keep watching up to the moment I get to, and I don't want to have to be bothered with any of this prophecy and tribulation stuff. Do you have a Bible for me?
Love, that's great.
Well, but that seems to be how people think. And so Hal Lindsey and a whole bunch of people have written a new Bible for those people where you get raptured before there's any kind of bad things happening. Unlike all the other Christians who've lived throughout the last 2,000 years, or the Israelites before them, you're going to be protected. There won't be any Nebuchadnezzar in your future. No, don't worry. Titus isn't coming to your city, and you don't have to worry about Diocletian persecuting you. The beast will miss you somehow or other, even though the Bible clearly says that he's going to make war on the saints and overcome them.
Yeah.
Okay? Gee, I'm sorry, but maybe my Bible is not as, not the same Bible that everybody else is reading who thinks that that's not going to happen. That's also, by the way, same passage, Revelation 13, is the mark of the beast. And by the way, the next verse is, which calls for the patience of the saints. It says, he who fights with the sword, by the sword must he be slain.
Yeah.
He who who resists is going to go into captivity. Who's going to go into captivity? Into captivity he goes. That the passage is indicating that if you fight these guys, they'll throw you into a concentration camp, and if you put up a big fuss over it with a sword and a weapon and so forth, they'll probably kill you.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this calls for the patience of the saints, the faith of the patience of the saints. Well, what does that mean? It means be patient. Don't fight. Because you've already been told how the story ends, and they lose. So even though they seem to be winning, your commander-in-chief is on his way. And he is not going to be dissuaded. He's not going to be prevented. And he is going to come to the battle, and he's going to wipe out the enemy. And he's going to set the captives free. And, if you aren't captive, then you aren't one of the ones he's setting free. If you follow me?
Yeah.
So, as long as they're feeding you 3 squares a day, and you got a toilet, place to sleep, and all you have to do is wait and share the scriptures with one another, that's not a bad way to go.
Yeah.
So, it beats sitting out there and trying to grow food in the jungle or whatever it is people plan to do.
Or a tomato vine in a flower pot in a condo. Yeah.
My attitude is this. Some wilderness location in a safe place, and they don't bother you, you don't bother them, fine.
Yeah.
Start shooting at the helicopters with black helicopters full of the European Union guys or whoever it is when they fly by.
Yeah.
You're asking for trouble.
Yeah, you could get in a lot of trouble that way. You
could get your whole city, your whole town, your whole village bombed.
Yeah, you'd be real popular then, wouldn't you? Oh, gee.
One of these nuts in my town, I'm gonna go take his gun away. Tell him to grow up. Get some cojones here, okay? Because this is ridiculous. You can't shoot at somebody who's got a helicopter gunship. They're gonna cream you, and they're gonna kill a lot of innocent people. And all you're gonna do is you're gonna get a lot of your friends and neighbors killed.
Yeah.
Family, not to mention yourself.
Yeah.
If you want to get killed, march off into the jungle and do it by yourself somewhere. Where
yeah.
The Bible is telling us to do is to be patient.
Yes.
There's got to be a time period that we have to be patient during, while the beast is given this opportunity to fill up the measure of evil that will bring God's wrath down on his head. Because he says in 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, he says he's going to come and he's going to tribulate those who tribulate you. Give me a literal translation here. He's going to philebo those who have phileboed you.
Yeah.
He's going to tribulate those who tribulated you. With flaming fire in vengeance, okay? The Lord in a fiery vengeance is going to expel his wrath upon the heads of those who've been tribulating the saints.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we go through tribulation? 52 of the 55 times that the word tribulation is used in either the verb or noun form in the New Testament Greek are about the saints, Christians, going through tribulation. Only 3 of them refer to the bad guys. And that's one of them there. That was one of the verses I just gave you. So, what do you think?
Oh, boy.
Yes, there will be a time of suffering.
Yeah.
And to the extent that you know in advance what's coming, you can prepare for it. You get out of the way.
Yeah, see, that's the thing.
Get out of the road. Don't let the truck hit you.
Yeah, that's like the woman sitting on top of her house and the flood is getting higher and higher. And she keeps, God save me, God save me. And the boat comes by, oh, lady, come on, get in.
God's going to save me.
Yeah, yeah. And she says, oh, no, God will save me.
The helicopter comes.
Yes. And then...
God's going to save me.
Yeah.
Finally, she drowned.
Yeah.
St. Peter says she says to St. Peter, I don't understand. Why am I here? I prayed, I've had so much faith, and then what happened? You didn't save me. I don't know, lady. We sent a boat and a helicopter. What's the matter with you?
Yeah, I love that. Because it's so true. I mean, goodness.
I fear that they will shoot at the helicopter and blow up the boat.
Yeah. Oh, gee. Oh, Olaf.
You're supposed to be patient. You're not supposed to start a revolution.
Yeah.
Saith the Lord. Vengeance belongs to God. It's not our job to exact vengeance. We do not know the hearts and souls of other human beings.
That's right.
Our job is to go out there and machine gun some guy in a blue helmet just because we think he's the enemy.
Yeah.
Okay? We don't know what's in his heart or what God's judgment is on that person. That's his job, not ours.
Yeah.
Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. So he has a plan. He has a time to do that. He has a wrath he's going to pour out. He's made it quite clear to Christians. He has made that clear in the New Testament. It's not just Old Testament stuff.
How long is this pouring out of wrath? Do we have any idea?
Yeah, he says, I looked this up, by the way.
Okay.
The concordance, it's very interesting. It's a day.
A day.
That one day.
That could be 1,000 years.
Well, in a certain sense, you could project it to 1,000 years in the sense that those who were dead at the beginning of the 1,000 years stayed dead for 1,000 years until the second resurrection, yeah. So for them, that day lasts 1,000 years. That wrath upon them, that death lasts 1,000 years in that sense. But it's actually poured out in a day.
Like, when you say that, you mean 24 hours?
It's a hailstorm, technically, if you look at it. Primarily, the wrath of God is finished with the hailstorm in which hailstones as heavy as cannonballs fall on the heads of the people and, crush them like grapes.
And they curse God.
Well, that actually is before that when the sun is heating up and they curse God because of the sores from the skin cancer and other things that are occurring and the dryness, the drought, famine.
My goodness.
But, all of that is the build-up to the last day there. It all breaks like a storm. You know how for several days it gets hot and humid and it gets hotter and humider and hotter and humider and you keep saying, when's it going to rain?
Yeah.
Well, when it finally rains, you often get hail. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a little microcosm. That's a little lesson God's teaching you about what he's going to do in the last days.
Boy, it seems like we're getting closer and closer. It just sort of feels that way.
Well, yeah, of course. Time's passing. Closer all the time to whatever. Paul says that in one of his epistles, the day is getting closer than when we first believed. And so obviously we're always drawing closer. And our own personal reckoning is always drawing closer. I'm sure Tim Russert thought he had another 20 years.
Yeah.
And I imagine George Carlin figured he had another 5 or 10 years, and he didn't. And I think John McCain thinks he's got another 4 to 8 years, but maybe he doesn't.
Right.
We never know, okay? We don't know how long we have. And therefore, we're told to live each day as though it's our last. I think that's good advice. And you should always assume that that everything you've done in your life and everything you're doing is what you're going to be judged by.
Yeah.
Maybe the last thing you do. That truck may be coming down the road. You may not know it's there.
Well, it's strange, Olaf. This is a day the Lord has made. Let us be glad and rejoice in it.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, and I remember that every day. My grandmother used to say that every morning at breakfast. Every morning.
First thing I do when I pray is I thank God for today.
Yes.
And, whenever if I forget to do that, I don't have such a great day.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Well, what I mean is that if you don't thank him, then he hasn't got a whole lot of incentive to give you a great day. It's always good to be thankful. The Greek word to be thankful is Eucharistos.
Yes.
Okay? And we talked about the Eucharist. In the Catholic Church, they turned it into a little slice of bread that they hand you under special conditions.
Yeah.
But in the New Testament, Eucharistos is about a spirit of thanksgiving you're supposed to live in 24/7.
Yeah.
Okay, and so the idea is you're supposed to be in a constant state of thanksgiving, and you're supposed to be in a constant state of love, and a constant state of forgiveness, constant state of repentance, constant state of seeking God, seeking His will. There's some things that we're supposed to have a mind that is like Christ, but we're not expected to have it. In other words, we're supposed to grow up into the maturity, that level of spiritual attainment. But God isn't expecting that we have it, but it's a goal toward which we should aspire.
Right.
We're supposed to seek the higher gifts. We're supposed to pursue certain goals.
Isn't prophecy kind of at the bottom of the list on those gifts?
No, it's not. The bottom of the gifts actually is speaking in tongues, believe it or not.
I'll be darned. Okay.
It's the lowliest thing. It's the lowliest manifestation. It's sort of a sign that something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
It's a sign that you're different than other human beings. That something's happened to you.
Yeah.
Wrong in the sense that there's something that has changed it.
Yeah.
But the higher gifts go up from there. There's discernment of spirits.
Right.
Seek prophecy, yes, but seek also to interpret.
Mm-hmm.
To be a prophet who judges other prophets as to whether they are truly prophets or not, or whether the prophecy is sound. Seek to be one who interprets prophets. And he says the highest of all the gifts is apostle, because an apostle has to be able to demonstrate the signs of the Spirit and the works of the Spirit, to demonstrate the power of God unto those who do not believe, that they might be struck with faith and come to believe and accept the gift of the Holy Spirit, which is freely given them by God. They will open their hearts to it and repent and receive it in the name of Jesus Christ. So there is a highest gift, if you will, according to Paul anyway, because he was an apostle. He claimed that was the highest gift. Who knows?
Yeah.
On it. But there is the lowliest thing is just basically speaking in a language that nobody knows until there's an interpreter.
Yeah.
That's not terribly useful. Paul says, that I would rather speak 5 words with understanding than 10,000 words tongues that nobody can interpret. Okay?
Right.
The 5 words turned out to be Christ died for our sins.
Yes.
He says he came speaking as first importance that which I also received, that for our sins. So he made it quite clear, I think, what those 5 words were. And, that was above even the speaking in tongues. So that's pretty low on the list. But a lot of people elevate it to the top of the list. But it's not really at the top of the list. It's actually at the bottom. It just indicates that there's some spiritual manifestation going on in your life. And you really need to seek the higher gifts, because then you grow up into the maturity of Christ. And all of those things are part of the seal of God, which is the opposite of the mark of the beast.
Yes.
Beast is imposing his will upon you. God's trying to get you to come to adopt his will. There's a difference. One is a voluntary thing. It's a difference between communism and Christianity.
Oh, yeah.
Christianity, everybody shares things out of love for one another voluntarily. Communism comes along and takes everything you've got away from you, and redistributes it, And it looks the same to those who do not have eyes to see.
Yes.
It looks the same to Barack Obama. It looks the same to John McCain. It looks the same to people who don't get it.
Yeah.
Not the same. There's an enormous difference between Christianity and socialism. It's voluntary. There isn't.
Olaf, this has been very enlightening, and I certainly thank you for spending this time with us. And
If they want more,
yes, please tell them how.
And about the gospel, the seal of God, and a lot of this other stuff. We have them on our tapes, which are on our CDs and so forth. And,
yes.
Once again, they're MP3 files. That's so that we can offer them as cheaply as possible. And it allows me to hire somebody else to do all of this, so I can keep making the tapes and doing the research, and then they can put them on the MP3 files and on the CDs and handle all of that for me. So it's a wonderful thing, and I just hope that people will, they can go to theTimeQuest.com, the time, Time, like a watch, clock,
Yeah.
TimeQuest, all one word, .com, and right at the upper left-hand side, there's that little GIF file, that burning torch thing there. And right underneath of it, there's that, the cancer link about my wife and everything, and her death from cancer and stuff. But the next link underneath of that, second in importance to that, is that link that will take you to another website where those CDs are available. And there's lists of all of them. You can see where the Mark of the Beast files are there, and you can see what's on the various CDs and so forth. And it lists all of the topics on, I think, the first 9 or 10 CDs. I'm not sure what they've posted so far. I keep producing them. I send them off, and I don't know what they're doing all the time over there, but they're down in Alabama. They do a wonderful job, and they work with other people too. They do this for people. And Catherine Albright, who does that RFID chip thing.
Yes.
I hope she will do a bunch of files and things and have them put out a CD of her material, because I think that would be a really great thing to have on MP3 CD too.
Yeah.
A lot of great material out there that people are producing, and more and more people all the time are signing up with them, and so they're performing a great service for them.
They're great people. They really are, and very strong in the faith.
Oh yes, their website is before 2012 and beyond.com. That's AND, before 2012 AND beyond, all one word, .com.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go to my website at all. You can go right over there. I haven't updated my website in months, so
Well, you've been busy.
Yeah, well, I have. I got a lot more coming. Wait till there's so many great things, and what I'm so happy about now is I can put it directly to the CDs. I send them stuff that doesn't go on to tapes. I make a tape, but it goes directly to them.
Yeah.
Put it on the bonus CDs for subscribers, so subscribers are going to be getting all of this great material now right away, and it won't be this delay where they're thinking, this was material you made years ago. Yeah, it's still true, but
Yeah.
heard it before. And there are a lot of other people out there not telling you these things, but be that as it may. The great thing now is that we have a way to get this stuff out there a lot faster to a lot more people than we ever have before.
Well, Olaf, you're a real blessing to many of us, and we really appreciate your work.
Thank you, but I can't do this without you guys.
Oh.
Without you helping me to get the word out to people over the internet, without them helping me to get the CDs out, without all of the other people who've assisted, Jeff up in the Dakotas, who helped to get this whole thing started with his idea. I mean, there's just so many people who've contributed to this, and people who contribute to the research as well.
Yeah.
Jim out. And, of course, our late friend Liz. So many people who've done wonderful things to help out here, and Lucy and all the rest. There's so many people who contributed. And, and of course, the people who purchase the CDs, who make it possible for me to keep doing this stuff. I mean, everybody helping everybody else. Like we said before, the body has a hand and an eye, and the hand doesn't see, and the foot doesn't talk, but all parts contribute together, and everything works together for God's good purposes. So, for those who are called.
Well, everybody go to Olaf's website It is thetimequest.com, and you can write to Olaf Hage at Post Office Box 427, Brunswick, Maine, and the zip code is 04011.
I should point out that the abbreviation for Maine is M.E. You actually want me to receive it.
Yes.
Sent to Massachusetts by putting the wrong abbreviation. It's M.E.
M.E., yes.
And by the way, I can say this. If you'd like to start a subscription, if you'd like to do that, you can send me $49. We'll send you the first 12 hours on a CD, and if you don't want to continue, you don't have to.
Yeah.
I think that's a really excellent sample of everything. There's blotting out of the New Testament's on there. Satan's Throne on Mars, I think, is on there. There's all kinds of great stuff on there. So you'll be more than delighted with that. Almost everybody who gets it goes on to order more. So
yeah, well, believe me, everybody, you will be delighted with that. It is spellbinding. It really, the information is just enormous. The research behind it is solid.
Now, to save that $35, because it's usually $79
yeah.
shipping, you got to send that check to me.
Yes.
I'll sneak a copy off to you.
Everybody, this is Georgianne Hughes with Olaf Hage signing off tonight. And God bless every one of you. And I mean that. May He bless you in provision, wisdom, health, and understanding. Good night, everybody.